Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast. You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And we're back. You know, people in Israel are, listen, everybody wants to see the hostages return. And you have a lot of families that are saying, whatever it takes, make a deal with Hamas, cut our losses, just get the hostages home. However, surprisingly, there are a group of soldiers who are saying, we don't want to be ransomed for, some soldiers going into the war and saying, we don't want to be ransomed for Hamas terrorists to be released free. David Taragin joined us. He is in charge of publication. He's in charge of writing for the Algemeiner Journal. He's written a fascinating piece dealing with this very, very issue. So, David, I know your family and Reuven Kahana, your sister, really the whole Taragin kind of family. So, congratulations on a piece that just came out in the Algemeiner. Very well written, but I think so important because people have to understand there's another side to this whole issue. So, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Zev. I appreciate the kind words, and you and your wife are always lovely to me. So thank you for having me. You're right. This is we all know this is the prisoner swap hostage exchange. It's at the heart of the dilemma right now in Israel, and it's hotly debated. And one of the things that inspired me originally to write this article is I would speak to people about it, and rarely would you get a straightforward answer from anyone or any group giving you the same answer, right? Whether you're an economist or a statistician, a military strategist, a mother, a Palestinian, it doesn't matter who you were. Everybody had a unique view on this particular issue, the hostage prisoner swap exchange. And the reason for that is because of, the one truth everybody knows, which is when it comes to human life, there is no perfect calculus, right? There's no one answer. Maybe a poet would have the best answer of anyone because we're talking about something here, a soul and a shama and humanity. And, I think it's in Sanhedrin, they say, one life lost is worth a whole universe. And so.
But he was saying alive as if he saved the whole universe. So
if you save the whole universe, right. And so on the flip, one life lost is like losing a whole universe. And so when you are trying to calculate such a thing, you have to factor all of these things. And so, I wrote the piece. I tried to shed light on the appeals and the troubling things about each position, whether it be, hey, 70% right now, that's what polling says, 70% of Israeli society believes we should free the hostages at any and all costs, no matter what, whether that means, putting down our arms, whether that means allowing Hamas to rebuild, whether that means giving up 10,000 prisoners we have. 70% of Israeli society currently feels that way. Why? Because, first and foremost, it's saving a life and it's reuniting families that have been, not only think they lost someone, but they're stuck in this purgatory of waiting, which is just so cruel. And it's a horrible thought to think. And then, there's of course the national morale boost that it gives. And there's the message to the people of Israel that, hey, we're willing to do whatever it takes to, protect our own, especially if they put their lives on the line to serve our country, but even more so if they were just innocent civilians who were, enjoying living in the country. And then there's people on the other side who are critics of the hostage deals. And, their rationale is, well, we're releasing, potential threats into an already volatile region. We are sending the message and in a way incentivizing future hostage taking. And so it's it's a hot debate for a reason. It's complicated. It's not straightforward. But one thing that struck out to me in my reporting when I was interviewing people from different political walks of life, from different, having different levels of intimate relationship with the people who are hostage or passed on October 7th and were taken, is, and I think it's what's at the core of Israel is we're a nation of people. And so even these people who disagreed with one another, they seem to lead with compassion and understanding. And even if you had all the conviction in the world that your side was right, we should not release prisoners for hostages, or we should be giving them no matter what. If someone had a different position, they seem to have just like a real deep kind of compassion for what they were going through, because as we know, everybody in Israel, knows a person firsthand, or as a mother, this, that, or a child. And that's, one of the products of Israel. We're our army. It's an army of our people, which means, the math teacher, the baker, and the student are all in the army together, which is very, a unique circumstance, I think. And so one of the young soldiers I interviewed, he had a very, interesting point with me. I was saying, I'm like, despite all of this disagreement, and there's soldiers who spend their weekend protesting the government, so they may not agree with what they're doing. And I said, despite it all, what unites you guys, and what gets you to put on that uniform every single day and fight for what you believe in and fight to free the hostages, whether you agree with the government or the policies or not. And he said something that struck me, which was, it's not even a sense of patriotism. It's not even the fear they have of the threat of having, Hamas on the border of the country. And he said, it's one another. That's really what it is he straps his boots on because there's this sense of brotherhood in Israel that's truly, it's like indescribable. You can only see it if you've been there and you felt the camaraderie. And and I think that's like a very profound thing. And he said, he was like, you don't love your brother, you don't protect your brother because you're going to the same place. You love them and protect them because you come from the same place. And so I think, keeping in mind that is what fuels Israeli society and propels Israel as a nation forward, and is what, allows mothers and fathers to be, whether they're love it or not, they're comfortable in sending their own 18-year-old children into army service, because they know the generation before them did it so that their children could live in safety and prosper. And so I think keeping that in mind when you look at this debate and how hotly it's thought about in Israeli society is really important, because that's what it really stems down to is these are human beings, and they're human beings that rely on each other and depend on each other, and we're better for it. That's our greatest strength. So
no, yeah, listen, I found the article very thought-provoking, very well written.
Thank you.
But here's the thing, though. This is not a new question, a new debate. Its debate has been thousands of years. They used to kidnap rabbis for hostages. Maram Rottenberg, famous Ashkenazic rabbi, the fact that they wanted to ransom him, and he said no, because if they ransom me, they're going to continue to kidnap rabbis. He refused to let them ransom him. The irony is after he died, they paid a high ransom to get his body out. But the difference is today, and this makes the debate more heartwarming, is that yes, we want the hostages out, and the mother and the father will send the kid to the army, knowing the Israeli army will go to any lengths to free their daughter or son kidnapped. But the problem is when you release these hostages in lopsided numbers, and it's been seen that these Hamas terrorists and other terrorists who have been released go kill Jews again. It's a very hard decision. I don't envy the prime minister, but what you're saying, it's the brave soldiers who are saying, I don't want to be ransomed if I'm kidnapped by Hamas. It's brave. How many of these soldiers have you encountered?
I mean, over the last months, I've spoken to probably 100 different soldiers who all have different views. Come from different walks of life, whether they're more religious Zionists, whether they're secular, and sure, they have very different views, and they also consider, and I think that's why the leadership in Israel is so important, is because people are conscious of the disagreement and disparity in the country, which is not a negative thing. That's the product of a diverse democracy, right? Which is a good thing. But so they understand, there needs to be a hierarchical kind of command that people are making decisions on behalf of the nation, and I think they respect and follow those orders whether they agree with them or not. So I think democracies, whether it's America, Israel, they crumble from within, right? And so Israel is aware that the moment they let the division in their country be sown to such a profound level that the rest becomes history, then they lose the fight regardless. So yeah, they have different views, and these young men are clearly very heroic to say, hey, I would not want to be swapped for a prisoner if, God forbid, they were to be taken captive. And they don't just say it. I mean, these are guys that mean it. Yeah, they mean it. They mean it not through words, by actions. They're putting their lives on the line every day because they're willing to do to sacrifice for their country. So
David Taragin is our guest, senior editor of the Algemeiner Journal. His new piece is called "Don't Trade Me: Israel's Impossible Dilemma Amid Gaza War." What's been the reaction to the article?
I've seen a mixed array of reactions. Yeah, I think what people appreciated most in the article is I tried to approach it critically as a journalist and with nuance, and not make something not straightforward, which right now, I think in Israel and the world, there's a tendency to simplify narratives because we're only human and it's hard not to. And I think Israel in particular needs more writing and spokespeople and just human beings that are involved in sharing their story, that are willing to lean into these nuanced narratives, because we're the most competent military in the world, very possibly, yet our PR, which is largely, contingent on how we portray ourselves in the media and the discussions we have, we're lacking. And so I think I tried to give it a fair analysis, and this was a piece, taken with a lot of anecdotal evidence. So there's a lot of human interest story and element to it that I was trying to give emotion, because plenty of people have given their numbers of how many people would be freed for this and how much damage it would be in the future, hypothetically, this or that. So I tried to speak to some real voices who are intimately involved with this to get their perspective. And people have to make up their minds on their own.
It's an important issue, and I know you're passionate about it, and the people that you're dealing with were passionate about it as well, because it's not an easy thing to say, listen, don't swap me, because Hamas knows, and the other terrorists know, how much we value life. They value death. Our martyr are killed by their, killed by their martyrs. That's the unfortunate thing.
That's a great point, Zev. In fact, that's part of Hamas's strategy. Is exactly that. Is their thinking? It's what makes their what they did on October 7th and then retreat into the tunnels twice as bad. Is they were banking on Israel being willing to do anything they could to save Israelis who were taken hostage, which in the process they knew for a fact would entail devastation in Gaza. So it's such an evil. As Douglas Murray calls it, a necrophilic death cult. and he's right. It's such a cruel thing that they do, and that, you know, they're dumb, but they're not stupid. They know what they're doing. They're evil, but they're very conscious of their evil and Israel's, you know, need to protect their own. And so it's an unfortunate situation.
It is unfortunate, but you did a great job. What's your next piece going to be about?
Well, that's a great question. You know, I'm thinking about going back into diaspora and to the U.S. and talking a little bit about I don't know your politics exactly, if you'll agree, but I find what Trump does, he scapegoats Jews to carry out his own agenda, whether it's in education, putting tariffs on different countries, free speech, or deportations, which I don't like. So,
well, we have to get you back because I don't believe he's scapegoating Jews. In fact, I mean, it may be uncomfortable for Jews to say, him to say Schumer's not Jewish, or to say that Jews don't vote in their own interests, which they don't do.
I thought you were going to have a different view on that, which is why I brought it up.
So we'll have to have you back, and we have to discuss and debate. That's certainly an important issue, and it's worthwhile discussing. Dave Taragin is a senior editor at The Algemeiner. You got to read his articles. His latest article deals with those soldiers who say, don't swap me for Hamas terrorists if in case I'm kidnapped. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Zev. I'm a big fan of the show. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of your family. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for tuning in to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.